If you want to attract top-notch and the best staff to your physio clinic and have them stay there, then you're going to want to watch this episode. Hello and welcome to today's episode. It is called How to Attract Top-Notch Staff to Your Physio Clinic. This is part 1 of 2. Now, the reason why this is a very, very big topic is what I've learned over the years from lots of big companies in the world, not just physio clinics, but companies outside of that realm, some of the biggest companies in the world. And even when I just break it down into the smallest areas, such as the physio sector amongst the whole, the world, is when it comes to having a very successful business, it's always the people. It's always the staff, right? Now, I want to mention this book. It's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you read it. Only because what this book I will highlight is, it's not a physio-specific book, but it's a book that compares the successful companies against their direct competitors, right? But what they've found is, and this is not a secret, is the best companies, the most successful companies, they always start with the people first. It's always the people, because I guess if you have a look at your physio practice, where your physio practice is going to be in 5 or 10 years' time, although you might have a bit of an idea of what that is, you're never going to really solidly and confidently and with certainty tell that this is going to be, that this is where the practice will be in that time. But having the right people in your physio practice, if you have the right people, it doesn't matter where you will be. You'll find a way to get there. So this is something very, very important. Once again, I really recommend that you read this book if you haven't read it. It just really highlights, a lot of things, but they really talk about the staff first. It's a very, very important part. So you as a physiotherapy, the physio practice owner, one of your biggest roles for your practice is actually recruiting, getting the right people in the right seats. It's very, very important. So this episode, we're going to be breaking down how a bit of a framework as to what we can go through to make sure the best suited people are getting into the business and the clinic, and how you can make that happen. Let's talk about the cost of getting this one wrong. In other words, not having the right people in the right seats for your practice. The cost being high staff turnover, right? And as you know, if you get the wrong person in the wrong role or the wrong seat, or the wrong personality in the wrong role, they're going to be unhappy, right? They're going to be dissatisfied. They're going to want to leave. They're going to look at other ways, all right? That's a big, big thing, which will cost you not only, the time that you invested with them to train them up, get them up to speed to your clinic, but the cost to replace them as well. You're going to have to spend the same amount of money and time to get them up there as well, all right? So poor patient satisfaction. All right. If you have the wrong people in the wrong seat, not the best people for the right areas, the right seats, you're going to have poor patient satisfaction. It's quite obvious, isn't it? All right. So if you're not sound enough, if you don't know the qualities that you really need to have for the right people, you're going to be struggling with one of the biggest things that your practice relies on. In fact, it is the biggest thing, how you treat your patients and if they're coming back and the retention, that kind of thing. Right? Disconnected team. If you have the wrong people, if you recruit the wrong people into your practice, you're going to have a more disconnected team than if you didn't have that person. Okay? This is something that I went through quite a lot. Even having one team member in your team that is not quite aligned with you as a practice and the vision and the purpose that you have for the practice, they're going to destabilize the rest of the team and bring them down, right? So that's what happens as well. So who you bring into the practice is so critical. Obviously, as a result of all of these, you're going to have decreased clinic growth, right? So if you have patients that are not satisfied, you're constantly changing staff and have to train them up. There's a lot of lag time to get them up to speed. You have a disconnected team. it's quite obvious the clinic's not going to grow. It's going to go down in growth or decrease growth or shrink, all right? And more importantly, this is a big one for you. You're going to create a clinic that depends on you, right? Because the right people aren't in the right seats. If you create a business that is dependent on you, you're going to have a never-ending job, right? This is part of what we really need to do as physiotherapy practice owners, so the practice runs by itself. So now that you know the costs, the benefits really are pretty much the opposite, right? You're going to have a happier and more engaged staff, right? Because they're happier, because they're more engaged, you're going to have high patient satisfaction. They will collaborate, they will talk, they will problem shoot, they will work issues out themselves, trickling down to the patients as well, giving them higher patient satisfaction, right? And, unified team. If you have a more connected team, if you have the right team for your practice, you're going to have a more unified team. And obviously, all of these things will mean that your clinic will have more potential to grow, and not just in revenue, but in people as well. The more right people that you have in your practice, right, the more chance you're going to have of attracting even more of the right people. It's very, very important. And obviously, one of the most important things for a physio practice owner like you is you are well on the way. If you hire the right people, right, you are well on the way to have a clinic that runs without you, because they are going to sort the problems out. They're going to move the practice. They're going to get the practice to that next level with less input from you. That's a very, very important thing. All right. So how do we get this right? What are some of the basics of getting things right? Where can you start? Because a lot of practice owners, I hear from them that there's not enough physios in the market or in the workplace to be hired. And sure, that may be partly true, right? But if you build a practice that is so focused on, we'll talk about the purpose and the values in a second. If you have the right people in your practice, right, you're going to grow and you're going to build a business and a practice that will attract other great people as well. So hiring other physios will become easier as well, because people from the outside looking in towards your practice who are potentially looking at joining your team will see the team that's already existing and being attracted to that, right? So one of the most effective ways to really make sure that we get the right people into our practice is to make sure that we have the right people in there in the first place. So getting the basics right. If you haven't seen a couple of our other episodes, there's an episode on the purpose for the practice and the core values of the practice. So purpose means, what does your practice truly stand for? That's not money related. That's not growth related. That's not new patient numbers related. What does it truly stand for? What's its purpose? And knowing that will make it very, very easy for you to identify who belongs in your team and who doesn't belong in your team. This is something that you could never achieve. It's ongoing. For example, we will continually strive to increase patient outcomes for our patients. Something like that. Whatever that is it's never finishing, always ongoing. The core values, right? What are truly the core values for your practice? Once again, I encourage you to watch the episode if you haven't watched it, right? So core values, a lot of practices, a lot of businesses make this very complicated, have these big words, make it, almost academic, so to speak, but they need to be very, very simple. Very simple. It could be something like be bold, or brutal honesty, or customer first. Something very, very simple that is very easy to understand. So when you have a core purpose and a core value, and you know what they are very clearly, you can use them as tools to see whoever's coming into your practice, are they the right fit or not? So like I mentioned, you're only hiring them if they are in full alignment with the core purpose and the core value. If you're in full alignment, if you hire somebody out of alignment or poor alignment, there's going to be some cost there for the rest of the team because somebody else is not quite aligned. This is why it's so very important to make sure that you hire only the right person. Only do that when that happens, but not really hire out of desperation. This is where knowing this becomes very powerful. Your purpose, your core purpose and core value, you really need to know that very, very strong. All right. So spotting the right person, how do we know when we're interviewing them, things like that? How do we know they're the right person? So one of the key ways is interview is core vision and core purpose related. Obviously, if you're a physio and you've gone through university, or if you've been out of university for a while, anyone who comes in, they will have a reasonable level of clinical expertise. And that's something you can always improve on anyway. It's important. It's very, very important. But I really believe, right, what I see is if you have a look at your core purpose and core values, this should say, right, if you have a look at them and if you interview and test whoever comes in to those, it could be questions related to that, right? It could be scenarios related to your core values and core purpose. If you interview is structured around these areas more, you're going to find the right person quicker. Next things is, let's just say once they're in, one of the things you can do is onboarding that sets up for success. All right. You could be, a solo practice owner at the moment, or you can have a lot more other people. Whatever it is, right, you need to have an onboarding process that is world class. In other words, when you attract that A player, that top-notch best staff into your practice, you need to make them feel like they're that right from the start, because A players, they look for A environments. If you don't provide them that right from the start, the likelihood of them staying on board, it's not very small, but it'll decrease. It's lower, right? So you need to have a structure and a way to really emphasize that and making sure, you welcome the team, or there's a whole onboarding process that they go through, introducing the new 8 team member to the rest of the 8 team members and really get them integrated. Right? Make sure, because A players always look for A quality environments. Create that. That's a very, very important thing. Pay, right? Obviously, when it comes to pay, it's important to have industry standards, all right, with awards and things like that. Make sure you're competitive that way. Only your local area, you will know that, right? Bonuses for performing well, right? Let's just say, there's certain targets that you want them to hit, or you want to hit as a practice or a revenue, whatever that is. Set those targets. And once they do that, they get bonuses. So they stay motivated. A players will want to, they really thrive on reward as well. All right. So you want to create a bonus structure. Review their pay regularly. If you have a true A player, they're going to be doing these really well. They're going to be doing everything they can to create the momentum for your practice. So reviewing their pay and increasing them shouldn't be a problem, because they're bringing in a lot more value than what they're asking for as well. Okay. Perks, work-life balance. Some people want a nice work-life balance. They want to work in the morning. They want to work in the afternoon. Things like that. You need to try and work that out and make sure that you create that environment as well for them, because the likelihood of them staying, if that happens, will be higher, right? High performers. So once again, this is related to the bonus. You have a set of high performers that are consistently hitting targets and KPIs and things like that. You want to offer them high performer perks. It might be, maybe it's private health insurance, whatever that is, being creative in creating environments where you reward the high performers as well. And it's thinking outside the box. It could be quite simply, membership at a annual pass for your local sporting club. Things like that. High performance. Praise. This is quite an important one. All human beings, they thrive on feeling good about themselves, feeling significant, right? Employee of the month is something maybe you can incorporate as well. You have a set of targets and set of KPIs and goals you want to achieve, and people who do really well in them, you can offer employee of the month. There's something that you really should do, right? And also, one of the things that I really see that works well for physio practice and business in general is whenever there's an opportunity, praise your team members, or get the rest of the team to praise the team members, especially during team meetings in public scenarios. All right. This concept's called edification, right? Where somebody is edifying or somebody is praising somebody else publicly. It has a lot more weight. Doing this will increase the morale of the staff, and it'll create more connection and therefore more chance of you retaining that staff. All right. So some action steps. So the first thing is you've got to highlight the purpose and the values for your clinic. That is a must. If you haven't done that already, sit down and have a look and find out, really get clear on what your core purpose is. One core purpose and your core values. Keep it simple. Very, very simple. Get very, very clear on that. All right. And then when you have job listings out there, have your job adverts in alignment with the purpose and the core values. Maybe even include them. All right. When you include them, people who don't resonate with them don't tend to apply. All right. You might think that's narrowing the field, but in fact, what that's doing is that it's speaking to the right person. It's actually increasing the field of the right person. It's very, very important. All right. Then once they are at the interview stage, as I mentioned before, we need to make sure that we test them for the core values and the core purpose. Very, very important. If you don't do that, if you get the wrong person, you already know what those costs are. Okay. A system to have new staff welcome and integrate. As I mentioned, A players really, really like. They love and they thrive. They look for A quality environments. So have a onboarding process for your staff that feel like they're an A environment right from the start. It's very, very important. All right. Create paths to progress for staff. So, it's great getting into a certain role when they come in, but some people want to stay there, that's fantastic, but you'll find a lot of people will want to keep growing and evolving and, getting promotions and, upgrading and changing and growing into more responsibility. So you need to create more pathways for that. Maybe, for example, if a physio comes in, they can go from physio to peer-to-peer mentor or in-service coordinator or mentor, maybe practice manager or clinical manager, things like that. You need to create a pathway for them. Okay? A lot of A players will look for that. All right. So I really hope that was useful. Right. I just really want to say that make sure that the people that you get into your practice, you take a lot of care in doing that. All right. I would really be careful in being tempted out of lack of staff out there, but be very diligent and careful and be very strict in who you let in, because doing that will really make sure that you attract more and more high quality people moving forward as well. So if you find that useful, head to our website here as well, physiomarketing.co. There's some great articles there, checklists for your physio practice. More podcast episodes and articles just like this, a whole raft of information out there. Go check it out. Other than that, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.